My name is Naila Saras. I am the IANA Services Manager at ICANN, and I am giving the presentation on IANA, the who, what, why. This basically talks about the three different portions of work that the IANA department provides in protocol parameters, number, resources, domain names, basically how we go about doing our job and what drives the decisions and how we perform the job. In this specific presentation, I'm talking about the number resources portion of the IANA functions. As you've heard in other presentations, the number resources encompass different types of unique identifiers. In this presentation and in the realm of the number resources, of what IANA does, we're talking about IPv4 addresses, IPv6 addresses, and AS numbers, and specifically the allocation and the processes that govern how those allocations are made. One thing to remember in terms of the policies that drive the work that IANA staff do to allocate those resources, it's very important to remember that the policies are based on very deterministic formulas or methods in which we calculate the allocations that are made to the RIRs, to the regional internet registries. And these are three types of allocations: IPv4 address allocations, IPv6 address allocations, and AS numbers. The staff in making their allocations follow or use data that is published daily by the RIRs, and that's the data that feeds into how the requests are validated, and the allocation portion is calculated. As I said earlier, the allocation types apply to the first two bullet points on this slide. For AS numbers and for IPv6 allocations, we have a formula that we follow, and we must receive a request to initiate the allocation. For IPv4 allocations, those are done on a pre-scheduled basis, and both of these types are discussed later in the presentation. For IETF allocation procedures, those are governed, those I believe are discussed in the protocol parameters portion of this presentation on the IANA who, what, why. We call the allocation type for IPv6 addresses and ASN numbers, we call them the formula plus request. Formula because it's a deterministic calculation based on the policy, and plus a request because IANA staff have to receive a request from an RIR for this allocation to be made. In this representation here, we chose to represent the policy in terms of a formula. So this formula is derived strictly out of the policy. And in this example, we're giving an example of how a calculation for an IPv6 allocation is made, and a very similar logic is used for the ASN number allocations. And so to summarize, we have to receive a request from the requester, and then we do the calculation of whether or not this request is qualified for an allocation, and if yes, how much. And again, the data is based on the statistics that are published daily by the IRRs. And I believe this information is available on stats.research.icann.org. The data is publicly available for anyone to review, and it's uploaded daily. And here's an example of the data that we referred to earlier, the data that's on the stats.research.icann.org. In this example, this shows the IPv6 pool, available IPv6 pool at RIPE NCC. This chart is as of February 2015. And you can tell from this chart how much has been assigned, allocated, reserved, and is still available. And once those allocations are made, the relevant registries are updated. So here we're talking about the IPv6 address allocations and the ASN numbers. Both apply, both follow the same process. Once the allocation is determined in terms of how much the allocation is made, the registry is updated, and a communication is sent out to both the RIR communities and the operations communities. So similar with what we do for the IPv6 and ASN number allocations, which is what we call the formula plus request, the IPv4 allocations are formula plus schedule. It's done on a scheduled basis twice a year on March 1st and September 1st, or the first business day after March 1st or September 1st if they fall on a weekend. These allocations are done based on a schedule because this is now the allocations that are made from the recovered pool of IPv4 addresses. So every 6 months, the staff download a software that is publicly available and posted online. Anyone can download it and run it, even ahead of the allocation date, and know what space is going to be allocated to which RIR. So the staff download, run the software, make the allocation, and again, as with the previous process, they do the communication to the RIRs and to the operations communities. In terms of volume of work and how many allocations are done at the IANA level, this chart shows the number of allocations we've done in the last 4 years. So as you can see, it's a handful or less allocations that happen each year for all 5 RIRs. And we are almost halfway through 2015, and the numbers are also around the same average. We also report on performance targets. These performance targets were developed in consultations with the community, and they mainly measure our work in terms of accuracy, of how accurately we process requests received, and then the timeliness in which those requests are performed. You can go to iana.org/performance, and it provides you with a lot of data about all 3 different IANA functions and how we do monthly on processing requests for all 3 of the IANA functions. And you can actually find this slide shows the KPIs, or the key performance indicators, that we measure against, but you can also find actual data and how that data measures against the KPIs. And with that, thank you for your time. And please direct any questions you have about the IANA functions to iana@ican.org.